Hey guys, I just want to bring up an opportunity for resource investors. If you want to rub elbows with the big wigs and talk to companies directly that are handpicked by Rick Rule, well, you got to be in Boca Raton from July 7th to 11th for the Rick Rule Symposium. The event has become a premier event in the mining space, and they're going to have some pretty big speakers like Robert Friedland, Sean Rusin, and the great Rick Rule. And also, we're going to be there. You can meet the deep dive team in person. So if you're interested in rubbing elbow with some of the biggest heavy hitters in junior mining, check out the link below. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm chatting with James Anderson from Guanajuato Silver. In this interview, we discuss what's happening in the precious metals market. We also discuss how precious metals may be becoming more attractive as governments around the world continue to ramp up deficit spending in the middle of a highly inflationary period. And James also has some thoughts on how Costco is now selling precious metals and the impact that that could have on silver and gold prices. We also talk about Guanajuato Silver, what the company has in plan for 2024, and how much of a game changer it is now that silver is north of $30. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. James, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So the last time we spoke, and I appreciate how transparent and honest you were, things weren't looking so great. And that's just because you've built a company that requires a higher silver price, and there's some leverage there. It's obviously expensive to operate, and when silver is below $20, it doesn't feel so good. Now, at the time of recording, silver is, I believe, over $30, and suddenly you're looking like it's like the movie She's All That. It's like suddenly you take off the glasses and oh my God, she's gorgeous. What's it like right now? What how's everything going? What can you tell us about your operation? Are you guys ramping up? What's the latest?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. Everything that you just said is exactly right. Let me just flesh out a little bit of that. And I think the last time we spoke was in October of last year. And I think for a moment, the price of gold had come down and silver with it. And I think that we were dealing with an $18 handle for silver. Our company does not work very well at $18 silver, nor does it work particularly well at $21 or $22. Having $26 or $27 silver makes all the difference in the world. $30 silver is fantastic. This is what I had been anticipating in terms of a movement in price, let's say 2 years ago. Why it's taken so long to have the price move, you and I can comment on that and talk about that a little bit. But this makes a huge difference. What we've bought to make what we like to call Mexico's fastest growing silver mining company. We've bought 4 mines and 3 production facilities really, really cheap. But those are, they're assets that require money to be able to ramp them up into production. We've been spending a lot of money on CapEx that the previous owners did not. And now that we've got an inflection point in the price of silver and in the price of gold, it makes just a huge difference to our business.
So we were chatting pre-interview, and I think that this is a good topic to get back into. When we look around what's been happening around the world for the last decades, basically ever since Nixon took the world off the gold standard, money's been easier and easier for governments. And I got to say that now, for the first time in my lifetime, I'm driving around suburbia Toronto, and I'm starting to see homeless encampments everywhere. We've got a government here in Canada that is spending heavily into a deficit right in the face of a highly inflationary period. And I'm starting to look around now and think about how taxes are getting higher and people can't afford to live. And I can't help but wonder if this is kind of the time where all of those, we could say, silver bugs, gold bugs, tinfoil hat people who said that there's going to be a time where you want to own precious metals. It's starting to feel a little bit like we could be on the precipice of that. What's your take on the precious metals trade, do you think that it's getting a lot more attractive? And do I just sound like a complete conspiracy nut here? Or do you think that we could actually be at a point where people start to say, hey, I want to own physical silver coins, gold bars, you name it, rather than put my money into the stock market or own paper assets?
Right. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. We can talk about a lot of different aspects of that. Western governments, I think, have forgotten the damage that's done by by inflating currencies rampantly. That's being done all throughout Western Europe, all through the Western world. As a comparison, the socialists in Mexico City, they spend less money than the socialists in Washington, D.C. or the socialists in Ottawa. And that is why the Mexican peso has been one of the strongest currencies on planet Earth for the last 4 or 5 years, right? Strange to think of the Mexican peso as a strong currency, but the market's pretty smart, and it's sensed that the politicos in Mexico are doing less damage to their currency than everybody else. In the United States, I believe Treasury is now spending $1 trillion more than they take in taxes every 100 days. So, a trillion here and a trillion there, all of a sudden you're talking about real money. The socialist government of Mr. Trudeau in Ottawa, it's doing the same thing. We've got very large deficits at a time when the economy is relatively robust. So, people often give John Maynard Keynes a hard time, but he suggested that when things were good, that government rein in spending, right, and have surpluses. Well, we haven't had a surplus in this country, in Canada, for decades, right? So there will. I think we're experiencing now finally the beginning of a denouement for all of these poor decisions. And what do those decisions? What is the denouement? Well, it's the destruction of currency, and it's very, very difficult for people to save. And the middle class gets a double whammy. They have a difficult time saving, and prices for everything go higher. And I think there's anecdotal evidence everywhere about the rampant inflation. Inflation's not running at 4, 5, 6%. For most things, I think inflation's running at 15, 20%.
It certainly feels that way. Now, obviously, you run a junior mining company, and from looking at your assets, and if the price of silver continues to go, perhaps you won't be a junior that long. What's the conversation been like with, let's say, some of the larger institutional investors that I'm sure you chat with, high net worth individuals? Are we starting to see capital flow into the precious metal names, especially the silver names, with the price of silver now north of $30?
Yeah, again, there's lots of different points that I can talk about there. First of all, flows of capital into the precious metals business, not huge, right? And especially some of the bigger names. One of the names that has always been a favorite but is out of favor right now. You look at Barrick. Barrick, and I look at it in Canadian dollars, but Barrick was about $36 2 years ago, the price of the shares. And it's about $24 today, despite gold being at all-time highs. And so why is that? I think that the market senses very plainly that, yeah, gold has gone higher, but so have all of the input costs. So are they actually making any more money than they did some time ago? Well, maybe not. I've got a great deal of respect for the stock market, and I think the stock market is sensing, well, yeah, the price of the metals is going to have to go up even higher if we're going to want actual bottom line impact on that. With regards to silver too, I think all of your listeners, Steve, will understand, that gold helps to protect, or it can help to protect investors in an inflationary environment or in a currency destruction environment where governments cannot make gold just, by waving a magic wand, the way that they can make their currencies and distribute them. So gold has a stability to that. Silver being the poor man's gold, silver has that aspect of it too. One of the reasons, though, why I'm so interested in silver and building a silver mining company is because of the industrial uses for it. About 16% of all the silver that gets mined on planet Earth today goes into photovoltaics to make solar panels. And in an energy transition environment, whether you believe it or not, the governments believe it, and they are providing all kinds of tax incentives or outright grants to make solar panels. And you at least as of today, you can't build one without a significant amount of silver in this. And from about 15 years ago, it's now 16% of the world's silver goes into solar panels, and that's created a deficit. There's a supply deficit that might be about 200 million ounces per year.
So you mentioned the word deficit, and you were talking about how the price of gold might need to go higher to see capital start to actually flow in. And I appreciate your answer, because when I ask that to many junior mining CEOs, they always like to kind of be like, oh, there's money pouring in, and to try to get everybody to think like now's the time to invest. But I agree with that sentiment. We're not seeing that many successful private placements or bought deals yet. We see the odd one. But we're not seeing a ton of activity in the Canadian junior markets in terms of the gold and silver names. I know you guys recently did a financing, but the one thing that I do kind of want to touch on, and you mentioned this pre-interview, is that Costco is now in the precious metals business.
Right.
And I think a lot of people kind of look at that and they're just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But do you think that this is actually kind of a big deal for?
I do. I think it's a bit of a game changer, right? Because imagine, I don't know, a friend of yours, and he's heard you talk about gold and silver and inflation and economic problems, and it all, it all kinds of makes sense, right? And he said, yeah, maybe I would go and buy some gold. Maybe I'll go and buy some gold Maple Leafs and stuff, right? Okay, but I don't know if you've been to a coin dealer lately. There's hardly any of them, right? Like I live in Vancouver. There's only 2 or 3 real respectable coin dealers around, and you go into their little shop, and for somebody that doesn't know what they're buying, it's pretty intimidating, right? And you got to lay down 3,000 Canadian dollars to get an ounce of gold, and you go, it's like, what is this? I don't even know what I bought here. However, Costco is well known to consumers all over North America. The products are always good. They are what you are buying. And so I think for many, many people across Canada, the United States, Mexico for that matter, you can walk into Costco and you can say, okay, I want to buy 5 ounces of gold or 300 ounces of silver now. And that what you're getting is the real thing. And I think that's huge for, and they're selling, what did they do? They sold $300 million worth of gold in the first 3 months or so.
Yeah, I agree that it's something that I think a lot of precious metal investors glaze over, but I'd say that if you ask the everyday person, where do you buy gold bars or silver coins or gold coins, they wouldn't know the answer.
Totally.
But it's sort of like you're now kind of at Costco and you kind of had this idea in the back of your mind that, I should maybe have some silver or some gold, and all right, let's just do it. Let's throw it on the credit card. Why not?
That's another thing, because most of the other coin dealers, they're not really credit card friendly. So, to be able to walk into Costco and go, yeah, okay, I'm going to put $5,000 down on the credit card. I'll worry about that later, and walk away with the precious metals that you want. It's an avenue of precious metal investment that hasn't really been seen, I don't think, for a long time in North America, or the I don't know, the 21st century equivalent. It hasn't been here for a long time.
So when we look at a company like Guanajuato Silver and we see higher silver prices, how long does it take really for it to reflect in the financial statements when we see silver go from say $20 to $30 over a few quarters. How long does that take? Like, I understand that like you're often going to have to wait sometimes, 5 for financial statements to come out, depending on like if it's an annual or quarterly. Sometimes it's like a month or two. But just to sort of see that price reflected, like, is there any hedging involved? Like, do you guys do sort of any forward contracts or anything, or will we almost kind of immediately see those impacts in the financial statements based on the price going up?
Yeah, so we have chosen to sell some calls on silver and gold and our silver and gold production, usually out about 3 or 4 months. So, but those were sold. Let's say when silver was $23, they were sold, at $26 prices with a premium going like this. So for us, the price of silver and gold have kind of gone like this, right? And the impact for us is a little smoother, but it won't take long. I mean, we're already enjoying the prices, and month on month, we just did this exercise with a cash flow exercise on the weekend with all the managers in Mexico, and our gross realized price for the metals will go up every month here for the next 4 months.
So you've recently done a number of things to improve the company's balance sheet. You guys have paid down some debt, and you guys also did an equity financing round. Why is it so important to pay down the debt facility?
Well, I think it's important to pay down the debt facility, and some of our shareholders, didn't think it quite as important as I do. But the fact of the matter is we became a little bit over levered in 2023 as a result of taking on a little bit more debt than I would have liked, just in terms of our corporate structure and our production profile. And we did that because we had costs, we had capital to expand production, and the equity capital just wasn't there in the markets. So that in a nutshell is the reason. Repaying some of this debt now, that totally makes sense to me, and we will continue to do that, as we're able in the months ahead.
So what does 2024 look like for Guanajuato Silver? Is there going to be a ramp up in production now that we have higher prices? Are you guys looking at acquiring any new assets? If I'm an investor, what am I looking out for?
Well, in terms of the ramp up of production, on page 8 of our corporate presentation, you get to see bars of silver equivalent production produced, so silver equivalent ounces produced. And for the most part, since our operation started in the fourth quarter of 2021, every quarter we do better and better and better. There was a little bit of a glitch last third quarter where we came down a bit and then started moving higher again. The first quarter of this year, which was the one that we just reported, that's our record production quarter. It's our highest.
Just under 1 million.
Just under 1 million. And I believe the number was 987,000. So you can imagine I sounded a little bit like Donald Trump as we were counting them all. Find me 12,000 more ounces of silver. So just under 1 million. We're in the middle of this quarter. There's a lot of moving parts to our business. I don't know for sure, Steve. I don't know whether we pull back a little bit and then go higher, or whether we can get to 1 million this quarter and then keep on going higher. But generally speaking, you can see on quarter over quarter production increases. We're moving like this. We're ramping up production. I've just got back from 10 days in Mexico, where I was at all 4 of our mines, 3 of our production facilities, underground at all of the mines. And I can tell you, we have plans to be able to ramp up and increase production at all of the operations. So in the coming quarters, I think we will be doing significantly more than 1 million per quarter. That's the general on the ground plan.
Let's say that silver starts to trade. Let's say it consolidates here and it sits around $30. What kind of margin are you guys making on that?
Well, okay. Let me answer it this way. In the first quarter financials that we just announced, with record production, record revenue, and we drove costs down both on an all-in sustaining cost basis and on a cash cost basis, down by about 6%. We're not done yet driving costs down. We've still got all kinds of different opportunities to do that. For your listeners who maybe don't know, we bought 4 different mines that were needing capex. These were fixer-uppers that we bought very, very inexpensively, but all of them have required capex to be able to make them efficient and safe for the 21st century. So in terms of margin, depending on whether you want to talk about all-in sustaining costs or not, but the difference between, let's just talk about our published all-in sustaining cost of $20.20. Well, if we're selling silver at 24, well, okay, we got a $4 margin there. Really, that just about pays for return of debt, overhead costs that aren't included, exploration costs that aren't included. That's sort of kind of where a break even is. But the difference between there and 30 is absolutely enormous, right? So all of a sudden, and to what you alluded to earlier, it doesn't happen overnight exactly, but it happens pretty fast. And so every day that we've got $30 silver here, it is changing materially our the leverage basis that we've got, and just our financial picture entirely.
It's interesting you think about it, like if just as just a forward-looking statement in back of the napkin, obviously, but if you're talking about like you're kind of making that $6 of I guess pre-tax cash flow on 1 million ounces a quarter, we can kind of see how quickly, for a company with $100 million market cap, that sounds pretty attractive. And I imagine that if the price stays there, your cost of capital is going to get a lot cheaper, and you've got this ability to really even ramp that up further from there.
Totally. So just a couple of other points to reinforce that. The sort of gross arm waving cash flow that you're talking about, well, that's in US dollars. Market cap's in Canadian.
Yep.
That's one thing. As we get some financial stability, and as we get some financial maneuverability, our ability to be able to continue to invest in the business, continue to invest in the mines, drive down costs and ramp up production, well, that's well seen, certainly in terms of production numbers over the last 3 years, and in terms of costs in the last couple of quarters. So we can do that, and I think that the investors should be confident in Guanajuato Silver's ability to continue to ramp up production and quarter over quarter drive down costs as well through the investment, through further capex investments in the company.
Now, I don't know if you guys have publicly disclosed this or not, or if you can talk about this at all, but if you have a clean balance sheet and the cost of capital's cheap because money is pouring in, do you have a list of other old fixer-upper mines that you kind of have on your wish list that you'd go shopping for, or is the plan to just sort of let this vehicle sit there with those 4 mines, drive down costs, and generate cash flow?
So let me answer it this way. I don't believe that our company is big enough yet. We've grown the company from zero production 3 years ago to about 1 million silver equivalent ounces per quarter. And we've done that through acquisition, through what I think are very, very accretive acquisitions. Okay. Are there things in Mexico that are for sale? Yes, 100%. Are there mines that I like? I like all of them. I love them. I love mining. But it's a good thing that we've got a very experienced team of Mexican mining engineers who say, James, no, we're not buying that one. No, that ain't going to work. That's never worked for anybody. So we've looked at a lot of different things. It has to be at the right price. It's got to be accretive to shareholder value immediately. I think where mining companies get into problems, and we see this all the time, right, in the mining industry, is doing the big deal, the big takeover for big money. I'm not keen on that at all. We will expand our production and through acquisitions or combinations, some sort of M&A activity when the time is right, when capital's available, and when it's accretive to current shareholder value.
Well, James, thanks so much for hopping on here. I always enjoy chatting with you. I'm really happy for you to see that the price of silver has turned, and I see a path for you guys to really grow your company from here. It's not that often that, even though I chat with all sorts of junior mining companies, that I walk away feeling like this company's in a really good position. I do feel that way about you guys. I think that you placed a lot of bets, especially when things were cheaper. You don't know if it's going to work out. I'm sure that there's moments over the last couple of years where you were in some dark places where you're like, I raised a bunch of money. A bunch of people are going to want to kill me. What am I going to do?
Not just moments, longer periods of time than that.
And we can laugh about it now. But you really got to enjoy it when things are good. And I think that this is going to be sustained with everything that's happening in the world. And I'm very happy for the success you guys are having. And I hope you'll keep coming back on here in the future and updating us as you continue to build $1 billion business.
Well, those are all very kind words. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate our conversations.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.